coffee, so bear with us. We'll be with you in just a couple of minutes and start, since we have the panel here. So thank you. Right, I think we'll get going now, since I think some of the other panels have also started their business. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for this panel. My name is Mark Robinson. I work for the UK government, the Department for International Development, DFID, and I've also been involved until very recently in co-chairing something called the Transparency and Accountability Initiative. So I'm primarily here in my capacity as representing the UK government, but more importantly, to moderate this really exciting session. You'll see from your program we've got some incredibly experienced officials, politicians from a range of countries in Europe and Africa. I think you'll find the comparisons incredibly instructive. What I'm hoping we'll do in this session is to focus on, in particular, two things. As you know, the emphasis is on lessons learned in service delivery from a governmental perspective. And what I'm keen to bring out is, on the one hand, the role of governments in informing citizens about their rights and access and eligibility to services, and to look at some of the innovations in the way that's been done, to look at experimentation undertaken by a number of governments in enabling their citizens to get better information, not only to access services, but actually to go about their daily lives more effectively as farmers, as teachers, as investors. So information in terms of improving the underlying economic base. And the third dimension, which I'm sure will come out in our discussions, is how do governments listen to feedback from citizens when citizens feel that perhaps the services aren't provided at the level, the quality, and with the accessibility they expect. How do governments engage and respond, and then learn lessons and do their business differently? So the cycle, the feedback cycle, is an important dimension of this. And I'm sure you're going to hear many different exciting examples of how this takes place in the 4 countries we're covering today. I've asked each of our speakers to have between 5 and 10 minutes. We'll concentrate then on the discussion and your feedback in groups of questions, and we aim to finish by 12:30. So we'll stick to an hour and a half for the session. In formulating your questions, please don't give me 3 or 4 sub-questions at a time. Try and concentrate on one short question rather than extended contributions to the discussion. But by all means contribute, but try and be brief. So with that then, I'm going to invite, first of all, Minister Matthias Chikawe from the government of Tanzania. He is the first of our speakers, and let me hand over to you, Minister. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me talk to you about service delivery and lessons learned, government perspective. As you know, democratic governments are elected by the people and they're managed by the people. So the major aim of all these governments is service delivery. Hence, those of us who work for the government are known as civil servants. And I remember in my early days in the civil service, we used to sign off our letters by saying, "You are obedient servant." We were then truly servants of the people, to serve them. The Tanzanian experience post-independence. As you know, Tanzania was a British protectorate until 1961. And then from that time on, we've had the post-independence service delivery in Tanzania, which can be traced in two phases. The first phase is called the Ujamaa. Ujamaa for us was socialism, the socialism era, whereby all social services were provided by the government free of charge: free education, free health services, free water services, etc. And the second phase is the liberalization era, whereby the period stretching from the mid-80s, where the role of the private sector and non-state actors increased significantly. So the issue of cost sharing in different services emerged at around this time. Now, with the increased demand for social services and the limited resources that we had, mechanisms for improving service delivery were introduced. Such mechanisms include introduction of client service charters or open performance review assessment systems, and the implementation of various service improvement reforms. The client service charters were agreements between the state or the government or a particular government department and the people, which, for example, would say, you'll be able to get a passport from us, from the immigration department, within a certain number of days. If you filed in your application today, we give you 14 days, you'll be able to get your passport. That was the agreement. That's what the state said. But what it did not say was, if you don't get it, if you don't get your passport, this is what will happen. So the client service charters were there, and they are still there, but we are, of course, now reviewing those. And there were other various service programs, plans, and strategies that were established and implemented during this time. We had something we called the Primary Education Development Program, for instance. This Primary Education Development Program was a program which was for the development of primary education, primary schools, provision of classrooms, provision of desks, and books, etc. But you had a primary school education development committee in a particular primary school, which included or was comprised of teachers, parents, and non-NGOs. These committees would supervise the implementation of the program. And in most cases where this was done, the primary education development program was extremely successful. But 5 years later, we started another program called the Secondary Education Development Program. We did not follow the same methodology of participation. We did not involve parents. We left the headmaster to run the program, and this was a total failure. So we learned that for this kind of service, if you wanted to succeed, you had to make sure that there was full participation of parents as well as teachers and other actors. If you just left it to the authorities, like the headmaster, in most cases, these programs did not succeed. So in other programs where teachers or where parents were involved and they contributed either financially or in kind, we found there was great successes as compared to those projects which were imposed directly, say, by the Ministry of Education or the Municipal Council. In overseeing delivery of better services, oversight boards and committees at health, education, and water services sectors these have been established. These boards and committees consist of representatives from councils, community, and service providers. I'm talking about the three areas of education: water, and health, because those are the three areas that we have in our OGP plan as the priority areas we want to deal with in the next 2 years. So we have now boards, because we have learned this lesson. We have boards which comprise of people from the council, people from the community, and the particular service provider to deal with a particular project. And we found out those projects actually work when it's comprised by a board, by a board supervising them. But given the budgetary constraint, and the size of our country, and the population diversity, provision of quality services remain our major challenge as a government. As I said earlier, that we are now looking again at our client service charters and to make them a little bit more, to put sanctions to them, to say that if we promise you that you'll get a particular, say, a trading license within 6 days, if you don't get it, this is what will happen, and that we make sure that that happens. We think then the client service charters will be useful. Government is committed to this and other service delivery systems, and we intend to impose the appropriate sanctions for non-compliance, as we believe that transparency and citizen participation are the basis for good governance. These are the lessons we have learned as a government in service delivery, and I should be happy to answer questions or to listen to any contributions from you. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your contributions. It's a great start. May I go on to invite Marie Monk from the Government of Denmark to address us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Marie Monk, and I work with the Danish government. I'm a Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Interior and Economic Affairs, and my working area is public governance, but also including coordination with the Ministry of Finance on e-government. And as a representative of the Danish government, I can strongly support the whole initiative of open government partnership. We think that it's a very important issue, and of course we all see the initiative and the strategies that we have put forward these few days from different perspectives, depending on where we come from. And to put my perspective into a frame, I just shortly will tell you a little bit about Denmark, because our challenge is a country of only 5 million people, small country, flat country. People are very alike, well educated, they have pretty much the same income level, and we have a tradition of a large welfare state where people pay a lot of their income, more than 50%, to the state to supply the services, which means that we have free education, free health services, and unemployment benefits, pension schemes, and so on. So this is kind of the framework. In Denmark, we have had a democratic tradition also of a large extent of openness, and like other Scandinavian countries, we have laws that gives all information, all data free, that journalists or the civilians can ask for data or ask for information, and they apply by letter or they apply by mail, and then it will be given to them according to, of course, if there are some specific concerns about the data, but we have a law saying that we should have free data and information. Right now, Denmark is in a time of crisis, like other European countries. We are doing quite well, but still there's this new time of austerity in Denmark, and we have a demographic challenge that we have more and more elder people, less to earn the money to, especially if you have a society depending on tax incomes. It's a very big challenge. We have a growing public debt, and therefore our government has big concerns, but also focus on making a reform and modernization of this welfare state, and is very occupied, based on openness and inclusion and collaboration with the private sector, with the civilians, to transform this government into the new times of austerity. So one of the tools that are very much into making this transformation is the ICT. Not least because we have a population that is a pretty ICT-minded. 82% of people in the age of 16 to 89 uses the internet every day. And we have a penetration of that 73% of the population between 65 and 74, for example, has access to internet. So we have a large penetration and uptake of ICT, which could be used to make this modernization. Denmark has, since the beginning of the 1960s, worked intensively on modernizing its public sector and society for the benefit of citizens and businesses using this ICT as a lever for change. And we are among the first countries in the 1990s who adopted government strategies and action plans with the goal of transforming both the public administration but also the society in general through this digitization. We have worked through 5 decades now on transforming the society, and yes, we have failed as many other countries in reforming its public sector through the use of ICT and new technologies, but we have also learned from our failures and we have pursued our successes. Concerning the service delivery issue in a broader perspective than ICT, we have had a very intense scheme of new public management where we have specific goals on service delivery. And in Denmark, we have a large decentralized economy where a lot of the service delivered is provided at the local and at the regional level. And the local level can also get taxes from people. So there's a lot of negotiations on the service delivery goals, because you have to agree with the local level if you want 95% of the population to have a certain level of education. It's the local government who is responsible for the schools, so you need a lot of negotiation on agreeing. And there's a tradition of chaos, of rule of law, but very, very often things are done by consensus in Denmark. The Danish government is moving forward the digitization, and the recent e-government strategy and action plan for the period 2011 and 2015 will make the use of digital service delivery channels the main service delivery channel for citizens and businesses. So we're actually trying to move service delivery from letters and into entirely a digital age. I could tell you about some of the concrete solutions that underpins our emphasis on service delivery and on transparency and openness. But I'll just, because a lot of countries have these instruments, also just briefly go through some of them. In Denmark, we have portals for citizens, we have portals for the enterprises, where a lot of the self-service provision is done. And we also have a big project where we are consolidating our key data, not least because if you have this open data policies, you need to get your key data into order and find out what the different agencies actually have on the shelves. And that's kind of, and I think other countries experience that as well, it's a big job to standardize, to be aware of what data you actually have. We also have done some great efforts in securing a digital signature, an electronic signature for the people, which is necessary if you move the entire service provision into a digital world. But also, of course, to underpin the trust issues of governance. I should put, instead of telling you about all this, I should maybe, one example is interesting, the tax system. In Denmark, as I told you, we pay high taxes, but people also have traditionally high trust in the public sector, which actually means that the way we are developing service delivery in the tax system is thinking about how can we actually make a complete no-touch. We don't want to involve the people. We need transparency so they know what all their tax monies are and you can go and see your own tax account. But we don't want that you should actually do anything because people find that very difficult. So actually that's a way of moving forward, saying don't miss the transparency, but actually you don't need to involve people in the actual processes of calculating their taxes, because that's not of their interest. Some Danish people say, just fix it. I want to know what's going on, but please just fix it. So that's the way we're working with some of our service deliveries. Health is a little bit different issue. People would actually like to know what's happening with their health records, and we also have access to that. Some of the lessons learned shortly, I have 4 lessons learned that I'll just, when we look at this perspective of modernizing a fairly mature society with only 5 million people. When we do that, what are the lessons learned? And I have these 4 points. Collaboration with different levels of government is very important, especially in the society that I live in. You need to get all the way into the local level of government, because in Denmark that's where the citizens are. By definition, local government is the citizens' entrance to the public sector in Denmark. So collaboration is very important. Trust and security issues. The reason why we have made this digital signature is to secure that people still trust the public sector, but also that they feel safe when they start making their transaction on the internet instead of by mail and phone. So we have had a lot of work on trust and security, even though we have a large extent of trust in Denmark. One of the challenges we actually have in Denmark is that building a big structure, building all these silos, all these ministries responsible for different areas, sometimes makes it very difficult to create service from the customer's view, actually looking at the need of the customer and then making the solution. Even though we have a high ICT skilled population, we have some challenges finding out how to make user-friendly solutions. And finally, the channel strategy. If you would like to go along with these modernization issues, it is very important to have a clear strategy on what service delivery should be done by man, what should be done by telephone, what should be done on the internet, and looking into the competences of your population, looking into the needs of the population, and then make very clear strategies on how mature are your population to move into these different channels, because you will miss the efficiency gains and you'll miss the engagement from the acknowledgement from the public sector if you move ahead too fast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marie. Straight on to hear from Dr. Bitange Ndemo from Kenya. He's in the Ministry of Communications, where he serves as Permanent Secretary. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity. I would go straight to areas where we are focusing now. Kenya has gone through many phases of reform with respect to service delivery. And the last one, which we are now beginning to automate, is performance contracting, which is almost similar to our neighbor, Tanzania, where we have a specific number of days or hours that you can deliver certain services. But we have begun to seriously take advantage of ICTs in order to provide better service delivery to citizens. And we began with the infrastructure first, and provided infrastructure. We're now working on the last mile so that every citizen can access broadband. If you look at the broadband penetration in Kenya, or the internet penetration, the number jumped from 3 million just 3 years ago to more than 14 million. This morning I saw we are at 17 million. That's about 45% penetration, and that is very high in Africa, where we have been hovering below 10% penetration. And this is good because a number of factors led to that, in the sense that some of the areas where we had a lot of problems, especially money transfer, was solved by using mobile phones to transfer money. That actually helped in terms of people moving from not trusting the authorities or systems, banks, to very high trust level, where we are now moving almost 30 to 40% of the GDP through the mobile transfer. This is called M-Pesa. I think you've heard about it. And because of the successes that we have had in money transfer, the government has decided to utilize the mobile platform to offer other services on the mobile platform. And because of this, much of the government data, especially the registries, are still in hard copies. And so we began digitization of those records so that they can be accessed on the mobile platform to deliver the services to government. We began with judiciary because this is an area where we had lost completely, and the government just 2 years ago began serious reforms of the judiciary. Here, a lot of resources got lost because the systems were not working well. People who went to court lost their money. And now we have begun to actually, we're just about to finish automation of the judiciary. This is going to change completely and offer better services to citizens. And we're going to use it as a model for changing other areas. Another area that we have looked at the company registry, which we have also finished in terms of digitization. We have a very aggressive digitization program. We want to move on to the lands ministry, where a lot of citizens go for services and have a lot of problems accessing the services because sometimes the records are not found. And if you automate that, it's going to be much easier for them to access the records and are able to ask the right questions. The other area that we have targeted is health, Ministry of Health. We have started with the National Referral Hospital to digitize health records. Here, we are looking at very many innovations that are going to come out of this because this is an area where there's a lot of wastage. And yesterday I said, actually development should be redefined, the term development, to mean how efficient you utilize your resources. In this sector, healthcare, we lose a lot of money because of either some patients who have no insurance can use other person's insurance, and it becomes a burden. But what we want to do here is after we digitize all the records, we can remove especially the queues you find in public hospitals by creating call centers, for example, where the patient does not have to see the doctor first and then go to the x-ray and come to see the doctor again. We want to remove those redundancies and at the same time cut the cost, because our referral system begins from the district, province, and then the National Referral Hospital. When an x-ray is taken at a lower hospital, again it's taken at the provincial, and again it's taken at the national level. But this can be, once automated, that record would be there, and it can actually appear through the records of the patient. You don't have to repeat every now and then. So this is one area we are focusing most. The other area that we have a lot more focus, what I did not say earlier was that we did not begin with open data because of OGB, because we had actually started the process asking the government to release data because we wanted to develop a number of applications. And just before the OGB came up, Kenya had released their data, and a number of applications since have come up, more than 55 applications, most of them focusing on agricultural sector. This is an area that we see also that we are going to have a lot more benefits from than any other area, because it's going to improve on the efficiencies in the agricultural sector, thus improving productivity. One example that I gave yesterday is, for example, we found that there is data on the soils of the country, throughout the country. And because the scientists or the experts have the soil, they know the alkalinity, the acidity, and they can be able to tell what kind of fertilizer you can use. And through use of GPS, when a farmer sends an SMS, practically the expert knows where they're sending this SMS from. And because they know, they are able to offer a prescription of what crop grows there, what yield you expect. And these are things where farmers are now beginning to do projections, which were not part of the vocabulary a few years ago. And once we scale it up, you are going to see a lot more productivity and improvement in terms of food security, simply because of leveraging on this technology and getting to the farmers. Similarly, we are also working very aggressively on the e-government side. This is an area where there has been a lot of wastage. For example, procurement, which we have had serious problems because of the delays in payments. Usually those who tender for services put a premium on this. And because now we want to switch to where you procure to pay, and meaning that once you have supplied the goods, you'll be paid. The calculations show that we'll probably make a saving of $1 billion in a year by automating procurement services in the country. And then there are several other e-government services that we are going to leverage on utilizing technology and providing services to the citizens in the fastest way that we can. One area that we are building so that we are able to build confidence along with is to build the public key infrastructure. This enables us to provide better security by offering the virtual signatures so that you are able to recognize the partners, that the people you are dealing with in the virtual world. This we have begun to do at the same time to work on cybersecurity because if there is a problem and you lose confidence, it's going to take a while again to bring people to trust the systems. And that's why we are going ahead doing this ahead as we are building these applications and trying to assist both the farmers, the students, and other areas. On education, we are doing so many experiments, and because books have been very expensive, we have been discussing with publishers that instead of, say, for example, selling one book for $50, you can actually, $50 to, say, 100,000 customers, we could buy that book for $1 and sell it to 5 million customers. Actually, you make more money than that. And if this succeeds, we are piloting 2 schools on use of tablets and providing all the content. And the reason why we want to use tablets in schools is because research has shown that those students who have access to animated content, the retention levels are much higher than when you have a 2D teaching. I can give an example for myself. For example, when my teacher was trying to explain the wing of the plane and it drew something that is oval, he could not remember that to say that it was a cross-section of the wing. And for 2 years I was suffering. Why is the wing of the teacher looking different than the one I see on the plane? But now with animation, you just show the wing and slice it and you see from the cross-sectional area. It's much easier when you offer education that way. So we are hoping that we can improve on education, we can improve on healthcare, we can improve on agriculture, we can improve on e-government using the systems. But it's very expensive to do it because not all data that is in digital format, especially on health, there is so much that we can do with the current data, for example, because we want to utilize what we call rural digital centers to gather data and send it every day. Because if that is sent and you see one clinic is giving you 50 patients who came through and 60 came complaining of diarrhea, you actually know there is an outbreak even before anybody informs you. This is what we want to leverage on and be able to respond to citizens in a much faster way than we have done that before. But as in anything, there is a lot more resistance before people accept these new concepts. I can see. Yeah, he has given me 20 more minutes.
No zero there. No zero.
Yes, we want to be able, from the pilots that we are doing, that citizens can readily accept this, because especially on e-government, any new thing, you find there is very significant resistance that can derail it if those championing it are not focused on what they are trying to achieve. So the open data movement, or the open data arrangement that we've had in Kenya, and through use of ICTs, we are going to improve service delivery to the citizens in a much robust way than we have done before. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ndemo. And now finally, let's move to our fourth panelist, Mrs. Tia Miller from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Government of Estonia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And it's great to participate in this panel, and especially great is that different countries come together and present how they participate in OGP, and what have the lessons been learned, and how we want to improve the services. As my Danish colleague was saying some words about the country, and I remember that she mentioned that Denmark is a small country, only 5 million people, then in this respect Estonia is almost non-seeable. We have 1,300,000 people, which is quite a handful to manage well, and I can say that people are very skilled in ICT matters. And one other thing I should mention here is that, as you all know, Estonian history dates back a long time, but we have been in democracy just the last 22 years. And this is in some respect good, that left Estonia skip some phases of development and having bad solutions. So we could start to develop the country and opt to very new solutions. And saying that, really, Estonia is, if you look at the name of the country and just detach the first letter E, then you see that we are really proud to be E-country. And to mention some of the E services we have e-government, which is that the cabinet meetings are without papers. The ministers go there and they just have computers and they log on, and the cabinet is in session. We have also e-health services, and in regard to democracy and engagement of people, we are very proud to have online voting. And online voting is in both national and local elections. My colleagues here on this panel have mentioned ICT solutions to schools. Estonia is having e-school system for quite some time. And to give an example, that I hosted international student for 1 year as an exchange one, and when he came to Estonia he was given the ID card, and all Estonians have identity, and so did he. So it was very easy for me to follow what he was doing in that particular school, because he didn't attend the same school as my son attends. So in addition, we have e-land registry. And that means that if I have to pay a tax, then at certain time in my mailbox there is just a pre-filled formula, and I just have to click that yes, this all is correct, and that's done. So Estonia is, as I mentioned already, we have this identity, and as a result of that, 98% of all bank transactions in Estonia are done online. And according to Freedom House's Global Assessment of Freedom on the Net 2011, Estonia ranks highest in the world. And circa 90% of tax declarations are also done online. These ICT services are very important for people and also for the entrepreneurs. For example, establishing a company online merely takes 15 minutes. And there is the challenge for the government is to improve the national portal, which is named Eesti.ee. And this service portal comprises hundreds of different services, and they are in one easily accessible place. And this is very important for citizens and for the entrepreneurs. In addition to that, I think that as we are a small country, we always tend to reach over the borders. And there I gave one example when you have an international student and he is given the ID card, and then he is being as Estonian. But this national portal I mentioned, also we try to improve the services of cross-border. For example, 11 EU countries will be offered authenticated electronic services, and 9 EU countries will, besides these authenticated services, will also be offered digital signature. So this is very good, and I think that for a small country it is also important, and this OGP certainly gives new challenges and opportunities for other countries to comply to stretching out of the borders of the country. There is one more service I'd like to say, which is called X-Road in Estonia, and our president named it a backbone of e-Estonia. This is a secure and decentralized data management system, and it has also made digital prescription and digital healthcare records possible. So as a result, all of those services I have mentioned has made life easier and simpler in Estonia, and the civil society through that has become stronger and also improving the country's services that we deliver to the public. And I think one of the biggest challenges is that Estonia has learned that if you have these ICT options, it doesn't always mean that it will function the way, because it's not only enough if you create the possibility. You have to have the infrastructure and laws in place. So I can tell a story about a boy named Tom. Actually, Tom is the abbreviation of Estonian sentence, which means I decide today. And it was in 2001 that the government launched this open opportunity for the society to participate in governance, and it was a great opportunity. We can't say that it was a failure, but it's later transformed over to something else. But if you create an opportunity, you always have to see what is the process, how you will get to the end that you want to get. So this opportunity created by the government lets people and groups of people to propose the government things that should be changed, or some sectors in the government that should be improved. And then if there was enough clicks and a certain number of positive response to that, then it was presented or given to the Prime Minister, and he then signed it and sent it over to the respective government agency to implement it. But there the idea died, so to say, because at some cases the respective government agencies said that, oh, it's not in our work plan, we can't start to implement that. Then some other reason was that, oh, we are not responsible. This is kind of a shared responsibility. And as we had some 370 ideas first year, then in 3 years' time, in 2004, there was like 100 ideas, and people didn't participate anymore. But this is also a lesson, you know. It's always very important to open the door and to be available to new ideas. And even if you fail, you can learn from that. And later on, those ideas are now put into another portal, which is better equipped how people can participate in policy making and participate in improving the governance. So I think Estonia's greatest challenge is also the collaboration of different levels of government. I can call it as a glue, like a glue. You know, you need somewhere to bring it all together. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Tia. You've heard 4 really interesting presentations, each focusing on a set of innovations in the 4-country contexts you've heard about in terms of improving citizen access to service delivery. And for me, I just want to highlight 5 things that came out of the presentations, and then we'll go into a discussion. The importance of trust of citizens in the intentions of government in order that they use the innovation to access the service providers came out clearly in a number of presentations, most notably in Denmark. A second one that came through to me was the importance of citizen oversight. We had a very good example of how different approaches fared in Tanzania, in the education sector there, importance of engagement to ensure effectiveness of different programs. A third theme for me was accessibility to information provided by government, and that accessibility depending fundamentally on what sorts of technologies citizens have at their disposal to access that information in very different contexts. And again, we heard some really good examples in that respect from Kenya and from Estonia. A fourth theme, brought out in the Tanzanian example in particular, was around what happens when government doesn't perform effectively. What recourse is there for citizens? And we heard an example of the importance of sanctions for when there is citizen feedback on poor performance. And the fifth theme was really the importance of all this for outcomes. How do things change as a consequence of the improvements we've seen through better access to information, using technologies, and seeing greater responsiveness in government? So the so what question. I think we had a really impressive example from Kenya about quantifying the amount of benefit that came from the rationalization of government procurement. And I do think that putting numbers on some of the achievements and the savings to government through these efficiencies is another important dimension of this discussion, particularly as was highlighted by our Danish colleague in conditions of resource scarcity, when citizens want to be sure not only they're getting good services, but actually governments are making wise choices. And finally, to thank the panel for their honesty, very open in terms of mistakes made and lessons learned. I think that's a very important aspect of what you've heard today. So with that, let me look to see who would like to ask the first set of questions. I will take them in a couple of batches and ask the panel to respond, and then give them an opportunity to wrap up at the end. Here over the back, please. Is there a microphone roving? Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting presentations all. I'd like to ask a question, and perhaps more so to Minister Ndomo and also the Danish minister. Many countries have had, for the better part of the last decade, public sector modernization programs largely focused around e-government and the use of ICT to improve efficiencies and service delivery. What is it about open government and open government data that's going to make that different? I mean, many of these e-government programs have had moderate successes. What is it about open data that will make it different? How does it change the strategy or the trajectory in terms of service delivery?
Could you just introduce yourself, please? Thank you.
Pardon?
Could you just introduce yourself?
Oh, Maurice McNaughton. I'm from Jamaica, University of the West Indies.
Bom dia a todos. Vou esperar pela tradução.
Translation. Please.
Ok. Eu sou brasileiro, sou funcionário do Senado Federal. Eu espero. Ok? Ok. Eu sou brasileiro, sou funcionário do Senado Federal, Brasil. E quando vocês falam aí na população de vocês, de 5 milhões, de 1.300.000 pessoas, eu fico imaginando morar num lugar tão pequeno, porque aqui no Brasil nós somos cerca de 190 milhões de pessoas. É difícil administrar. Bom, eu tenho duas observações e uma pergunta. A observação que eu estou vendo desde ontem aqui é que a internet é o canal de divulgação dos dados do governo. Eu creio que é óbvio por ser o de acesso mais barato hoje em dia, mas nenhuma das salas por onde eu andei, alguém falou em divulgação desses dados pelo rádio ou pela televisão, que são também meios baratos de acesso. Uma outra coisa que eu observei é que que essa decisão de divulgar os dados vem de fora para dentro do governo. É uma exigência da população e o governo atende a essa exigência. Eu não sei se eu estou errado, mas eu não ouvi ninguém dizer, nas outras salas também, que é uma iniciativa do governo. E a pergunta é, existe no país de vocês um órgão exclusivo tratando da transparência, ou essa é uma iniciativa de cada órgão individual? Só isso, obrigado.
We have a third question over here, and then fourth one.
Good morning. My name is Ivan Jančarek, and I'm a Czech ambassador here to Brazil, representing the Czech Republic here in OGP. I've got the following questions on Tanzania, a small observation and a question. You were talking about the sanctions, if the government is not able to deliver. Well, one of the experience is, that before implementing the sanctions, it's better, to improve, your services, because, once you need, to put the sanctions, you need one more agency or someone, who will imply the sanctions, So actually, if it's not better, if you are not, if there is a problem, not to deliver the services in that area, either, well, through personal change in that agency, or I would say, extend the possibility and then improve it, consequently. Because unfortunately, as I see, sometimes it happens as well in the Czech Republic. If you have a sanctions, then you have a big administration involved, and actually it costs you more in the end, than actually improving the things, how to deliver the services. That's observation. Concerning Denmark, I would like to ask you one thing. You were talking about the trust you have to have actually using the services. And I would like to ask you, when using the digital signature, have you had any cases in Denmark when people use the digital services, but something went wrong, and they had to go, to what's the possibility for the citizens, to actually use his rights and actually to make things right. And on Estonia, I would like to, and it's a more philosophical observation, as you were right, and I would like to congratulate Estonia on the e-government. It was always always a good example in the EU countries, of a good, e-state, but it comes the problem of a theory of the big brother. As you as well mentioned, you have an ID card of your friend, of your son who was there, and you were able to watch him. I mean, is there any discussion in Estonia about these things? Well, because you are quite advanced, on introducing, the e-systems, and e-systems means, a lot of identifications. Actually, everyone knows everything about the citizen and how the data are protected. And if there is a discussion in Estonia about this kind of a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Alan Hudson. I work for the One Campaign, a global campaigning organisation focused on Africa. It's been an excellent panel. I think having people from different regions of the world is one of the big strengths of OGP, and this panel has demonstrated that. I've been struck by two particular things over the last couple of days. Firstly, yesterday, President Kikwete's comment that in Tanzania and other countries, open government needs to be about a pregnant woman knowing that her baby can be delivered safely. I thought that was excellent, extremely clear. And then today I've been very struck by Dr. Ndemo's comment that development should be defined as the increasingly efficient use of resources, which I think is a wonderful reframing of development. So my question really for the panel, and I guess particularly for our two African colleagues, is about your thoughts about how greater transparency can enable African countries to generate more resources, use those resources more efficiently, to deliver the sorts of results that President Kikwete was talking about yesterday. And I guess I'm particularly interested in about, how transparency can help African countries to move to a future beyond aid.
I will start with the first question from Jamaica. the question of e-government and open data. What will be different with open data? E-government actually can be delivered without necessarily releasing any data to the public. But data to the public empowers the public to do things on their own, to be able to understand the things that are happening. As I speak to you today, some African countries are importing eggs from Europe. And we have so much land for which chicken can lay eggs there, and we sell it. But you really need to see that data and say, this is nonsense, we can do it. In Kenya, we spend billions importing dried tomatoes from Spain, sun-dried tomatoes from Spain. We have more sunshine than Spain. And we have it throughout the year. And we grow tomatoes. But these are the things that I was saying about efficient utilization of those resources. Can we begin to think beyond and be able to create new products and be more efficient in use of the resources? That is what open data. If you look at the import data and you ask yourself, why are we importing chicken from Brazil? And we have land to grow chicken, and a lot of poor people who can look after chicken. This is what open data, it just opens you up. It empowers you. You become more empowered to think on your own and do many things. But e-government are the services that the government wants to give to the citizens. And although there are some areas also that we need efficiencies within government, like I said, in procurement, the citizens want to know what you bought at how much, whether it's cost effective and stuff like that. That is information, but there are benefits that e-government would bring in terms of internal efficiencies in government, but open data would bring more efficiencies from just the general industry. Then the dissemination with respect to whether government has ever initiated anything. Actually, everything I said was government, and some are pilots that we are doing so that we can expound on it. This is a very strict policy objectives that we want to achieve by leveraging ICTs in creating internal efficiencies. So actually, this is government driven. Only that I did not give credit to the government, but these are government-driven projects, and we are seeing benefits out of it. And how can transparency help Africa? A lot. I mean, a lot. I could give you hundreds of information. If, for example, and I would say in Kenya, if we were transparent in terms of data from government, and we had meteorological data, we would have known that there will be no rains and done something to the people of northern Kenya who are affected by the drought. Because this is data helps you to predict the future, and 90% of the future can be predicted. And you can only be able to predict if everybody is transparent and able to give you data that can help you build a predictive model. And if we did that, we would have done something to the many livestock that died. And as livestock was dying out of sunshine, we were importing dried beef from Australia. It doesn't make sense. I mean, that is simply because we were not very transparent and kept the data to ourselves. And similarly, it is the sunshine that was killing, that is drying beef in Australia, which we are buying from the supermarkets. Transparency would help. Fighting corruption would help Africa greatly in terms of knowing the resources, how to use those resources. So there is so much we can gain from transparency.
Thank you, Bitange.
Thank you. Let me just make a comment on what the gentleman who said he was a Brazilian working in the Senate said about the use of internet as a tool for dissemination of information. We do not have an extensive use of the internet in my country, although we do have what we call we have laid out an optic cable to all the district centers in the country for the same purpose. But we do use newspapers, we use the radio, and we even use the notice boards. You know, information is posted on notice boards so people can go and see. So we do use those other methods of informing our citizenry. Do we have an institution that deals with transparency? Yes, it is in the President's office. It's called the Ministry in the President's office in charge of good governance, which deals with transparency, integrity, and fighting corruption. And I happen to be that minister in charge of that particular area. So, yes, we do have that institution, and it's a big institution. It is also a powerful institution because it is in the President's office. How transparency, Alan Hudson talked about how transparency could help. Yes, it is true. In fact, if you fight corruption, the first thing you want to do is to introduce transparency. Then you'll be able to fight corruption. If you introduce transparency in all, say, procurement deals, then, you know, you're on your way towards fighting corruption. So we believe in the introduction, the usage of transparency as a tool also for bringing development to our people. That's why we want to inform them. Actually, the OGP for us is more internal. It is about empowering the people with information, which the government has in abundance, so that they can use that information for their own development. And once we do, even if we get 50% of that, we think we'll have done very well in the OGP. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And Ambassador, you talked about sanctions and the problems of sanctions. I do agree with you. But in the civil service, we do have internal sanctions, you know, demotions, some other different kinds of punishments that do not require a whole new institution to be created. They are within the government system itself. So we think, yes, the sanctions can be applied. They've not been applied, but they can be applied, and they'll be internal sanctions rather than creating a new institution, a costly bureaucratic setup that would involve maybe a big budget. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the questions. Concerning the overall open data strategy, which I think was two of the questions was, and concerning the issue on whether we are thinking a little bit more inward than outward, that actually people have to ask for the data to get them, why don't we expose them? I mean, living in a country where we have registered everyone since 1969, everyone has a social security number in Denmark. We have a My page where you can go and see all the information the public sector have about you. You have access to your health records. You can follow your case in many local authorities. We have a very open tax system. I think that the whole government tends to say that if there's a problem, they'll ask for it. And that's good and bad, but I think that's the culture. The mindset is actually very regressive in that term. But as I told you, going more and more into a digital world, we also acknowledge that we need to have more and more transparency. So we also need to be more open about the data so they are accessible, if they should ask. And I think it's very much a change of mindset. But the culture in Denmark is not very much on that issue, but more on could the opening of data be used to spur innovation? Could it be used to promote growth? Because actually what I have in my shelves of good ideas how to modernize government is tenfold if I give out the ideas and say, do any of you have any ideas on how I could modernize government? So I think our main concern also about open data is that we lack the business cases. But if we get, and we are trying to establish good business cases on that, if we open data, maybe the private sector or other civil people could have good ideas using these data, which could actually be better models, better businesses than the business that the government can actually think themselves. So that's the main focus in Denmark. On TV and radio use instead of internet, yes, I think we have chosen internet as a channel because we find that the penetration rate is high. But we do also have, for example, concerning welfare technologies, we acknowledge that some elderly people actually prefer to have telemedicine on their television screen instead of having someone bringing a computer, setting up a computer. So there's a change management issue that we acknowledge. And another thing is we do have a particular channel on television where you can see all the businesses going on in Parliament. It's not the most popular channel in television, but you actually have access to all the things and businesses happening in the Parliament. So we use that TV channel for that purpose. Concerning the digital signature, in Denmark we have introduced, the digital signature we have today is a cooperation with the banks, which means that if you go on your net banking, you use the same solution as if you go and put your kid into school or put your apply for unemployment benefits. So we have the same solution. And when that was introduced in 2010, we were very aware that we should have the highest security level ever in both sectors. So what we have is a two-factor model. It's complicated technology, whatever. But until now, we have not experienced any problems on the public sector business. We have acknowledged very few hacking on the financial side where people have their money stolen from the banking account. But when you go into the issues, it looks that people have been phishing. It's been unawareness from the person not being aware of hiding your personal information. So the solution in itself is actually has not been hacked yet. But of course, this is a race. So we always have to renew our concerns on these issues. Thank you.
Also, thank you for the questions. And starting with the Czech ambassador's question about Big Brother watching. And I was not probably very clear saying that I could follow my exchange students' school records, meaning that if he was given the ID card, then he enrolled to a school and then school admitted him into the system, and I as a parent could then log on and see what he was doing. Only I had the access as a parent. I mean, not everybody could watch or follow his footsteps. But in a broader sense, this data protection, from one side you have individual access through internet, and your data is there and the state has it. But since 2007 we have this data protection law, which also gives me as a person the possibility to go to the government record and see who has looked my files, either the police or or the tax office, or somebody has wanted to see my health record. So I can actually monitor who wants or who wanted to have access to my files. So this is really important that it's not it has to be used in an orderly and proper way, and this data protection law gives you the guarantee that not everybody has access. The making data available also, we had adopted the law of open data or public data already in 2001, and this gives broad access to all data on national level and on local government level, and everything that you do is made available at your homepage or whatever option you have opted. But this OGP gives a new momentum that we are trying to create the opportunity for the people to access information so that the government offices have all made it available in one manner. It's could be that the Ministry of Finance has one way to make his data open, and then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in another way, and it's really kind of complicated and people get lost. And also, if the data is there, one of our targets is to make it machine readable. That the data is there, but the person can't understand. If he looks at the national budget, one number is here, the other is there, and what sense does it make? So to make a green book and to make it machine readable. So as I said, this is also one of the lessons that when you make one step, you have to make another one. If that answers your question, sir.
Good. Thank you very much. We have time for another round. I see one question over here, another one at the back here. One more, perhaps? Thank you. That's 3 and a 4th right at the back. Oh, 5. Okay. Could you make them quite brief? We have about 20 minutes left, starting with yourself, sir, in the front, and do introduce yourselves when you pose your questions. Is there a microphone, please?
Good afternoon. I'm Otar Kahidze, the head of analytical department of Ministry of Justice of Georgia. I have just brief observation about the format of our session. We know that the topics of OGP are interconnected, but it will be better to focus on public service delivery rather than open data portals or fiscal transparency and management of public resources, because there are different sessions for those topics. I know that the topics are interconnected, but we can try to focus on the main area. Then just small observation about public service delivery thing and lessons which Georgia learned in this area. We had a situation when the citizen was going to get a passport, and the agency was sending the citizen to different defense minister to bring one paper, a municipality to bring a second paper, and third agency in school to get another paper. Then we have introduced a one-stop shop principle, which means that when you are going to the civil registry, for example, you are getting your passport without bringing another documents from another state agencies. But then in 2011, we had a session that our reforms was successful, one-stop shops were created, but what can be done next? And we learned that when you have 15 one-stop shops, one-stop shop for passport and ID card, second for land, and third for business registration, it's not a one-stop shop, it's 15 stops. Then we have created a new concept of public service delivery, which means that every service need to be unified in one under single roof, everything in one space. And now we have public service hall, which has more than 250 services. And when citizen wants something from state, citizen goes to the public service hall and receives the service. And this was the lessons we learned. And my question to our panelists is, what is the future of public service? What I mean is that in Georgia, we think that the focus of...
Can you just come to the point, sorry, when you have several questions.
Okay. So I need to explain the thing because we think that the rules and terms of public service shouldn't be different from private service, which are the most effective in delivering services.
Sorry, could you just pose your question? Because we have 5
the question is where is the public service as a concept moving in the countries which are represented on the panel? Thank you.
Thanks very much. Lady over here, please.
Yes, hello, it's Gemma Williams from Ernst & Young. Tia talked about e-government making life easier for entrepreneurs, and Marie talked about the need for innovation and new ideas for using open data. Dr. Ndemo talked about the 55 new applications as a result of the open data. And I wonder what the panellists' views are on the importance of a strong entrepreneurial base to make the most of the data that is available.
Thank you. And there's a lady just here.
Catherine Gaho from Kenya ICT Board. Mine was just a comment to find out the systems being used for monitoring progress in these areas. I know a lot of the discussions mentioned some of the ways we are seeing progress, but how going forward, how are we going to monitor to be able to tell that you are actually the level of empowerment, the benefits and all that, monitoring, really. Thanks.
Right, so it was just a quick question for Estonia, and it's not very often that I'm in a forum where I can say my country is bigger than yours, but it is. But it's fascinating what you've done with technology. Can you say to what extent a lot of these technologies and solutions are indigenous, developed by the local ICT sector, as against being sort of imported technologies? I'd just be curious to know to what extent the local ICT sector has evolved and developed in the course of this advancement.
I'm just following up on a question that was asked by the gentleman seated in front of me, yourself. The question, I think he said something like, how can open government help in the mobilization of resources? And my contribution to that would be, in the case of Kenya, we've seen in a short 10 years how openness has helped very, very greatly in tax collection. We had a situation where the country was almost 50% dependent on donors for budget support, and now it's less than 5% dependent on donor support for its budget because of greatly improved collection. The challenge remains on the expenditure side. How, having collected the taxes, how is the money spent in a manner that is accountable? That is a vastly challenging area and remains an issue that I think needs to be further discussed. I would also add that although tax collection has greatly improved, it isn't to say that there is 100% collection. There is still some work to be done.
Two quick things. One is there are now in India a series of public service delivery bills in various states. Do you all see the advantage of a legislation that names certain services but gives a generic platform for delivery, entitlements for delivery of public services? That's one. And the other question, other concern actually, it relates to the same thing of in a country like India, there's a huge debate around the UID, the unique ID card and number. And I think Britain actually did away with its national identification. And the concern comes not from data protection, but from a very great lack of trust with those who hold the data. If you collect it, someday it can be misused. And the day it can be misused, then there's nothing you can do about it. So in fact, information activists have said, what you collect, you put in public domain. Otherwise, don't collect it. so that that's some form of protection. That's one of the.
Thank you. I'm sorry to take this. Unless it was a very, very quick one, I think I will have to take the panel. Very quick.
My name is Wamukoya from Kenya, and I have a question for Dr. Ndemo. Modernizing government through ICT in Kenya has taken a top-down approach where government decides what ICT services to roll out. And this tends to constrain citizen participation. Are there any possibilities for innovation in this area?
Right, panel, you have roughly 2 minutes each, and treat this also as your wrap-up opportunity as well. So if I can start the other end here.
The first question was about from Georgia. Where is the public services moving? All the public services will be in Estonia. We will have also the green book of public services. He left. Oh. You know, I think it's also it's a developing area. You never know when it will be in a very perfect state, or if you are really satisfied with it, and things need to be improved all the time. But what really people are concerned that you don't have to make us look for services from different places, and this is the task of the government to bring it to the fore and to make it happen, and to bring the services so make them so open that people can use them. And going from that question, how do we monitor the progress? And also I mentioned the national portal, and 77% of citizens are happy with it, and even higher is the satisfaction of the entrepreneurs, which is 94%, and they are really happy what has been made available. I have only 2 minutes, yeah. The Jamaican question about if the services are from Estonian ICT companies. This sector has been boomingly developing, and I can't tell you exactly how many services are indigenous and how many are imported, but we all have heard of Skype, and Estonians are really, creators of Skype, and locally also we have companies emerging which can offer the services, and also this OGP gives a new push up for the companies to create new services that is needed. And India question about the trust that if the government has the data, that people are afraid that it's misused, and but Estonian people trust that. There was not a big debate about that, because I think the society is a little different, and we are obedient in our character, and we trust that once we make it available, that the other side also takes it. Thank you.
I'll just answer some of the questions and do it briefly. The question on where is the future public service? I think from our perspective in Denmark, the public sector has to move from a supply-minded service delivery to a more demand-minded service delivery, and that's actually a big change, but I think that's the way it goes when you look at the one-stop shop problems and the problems of delivering. Concerning the entrepreneur, being a small country, we have a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises. So we are very, very concerned about creating a business environment which spur innovation from these small and medium-sized businesses. And we find that the open data can be an excellent example on showing the usefulness and the innovation competences of this sector. Concerning there were some questions about how do we monitor, how do we show how the money is spent, and I don't have the ideal idea for this, but I actually think the scoreboard thought is a good idea. One just have to consider very closely how do we cope with the user-friendliness of these scoreboards, because when we in Denmark published the health records of people, they were in Latin. And people thought it was like a great initiative to see that you've been to hospital and you had a broken leg, but they could hardly read that it was a broken leg because it was in Latin. So there is some work to be done to make this openness. And then finally, the concerns about privacy or security. Yeah, even in Denmark, where we have a lot of trust in the public sector, there is discussions going on the issues of privacy, that if everything is put into the government, all the information is in the government, how do you secure your private control of these information? So we have some very good discussions on new security models where you have the key to allow the government to use your data. Today it's just taken by default. So I think that's an important discussion as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. In this round, there's been nothing directly requested of me, so I would have been, I would have gladly given my 2 minutes to Ndemo, who I know has a lot to say. But let me use 1 minute to, first of all, thank everybody, the panel and the gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen on the floor for their contributions. And I have learned quite a few things as a learning process. This has been very positive for me. We have learned. The Georgian gentleman who unfortunately has left has some very good ideas. We'll take those on board and think of them, about them. And everybody else who has given us ideas, we thank you so much. Then I'll give you my 1 minute, which I would have used. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll buy your lunch. The question from our friend who left, what is the future? The future of government. What we're doing in Kenya now is actually trying to develop a front end and a back end, because the citizen does not care whether you are from Ministry of Foreign Affairs or Defense or whatever it is. They just need a service, and they just walk into a government office, say what they want at the front office, and then the back office can process, because we built highly, the ministries that have grown are highly independent from each other. And by destroying the walls and having a front face of government and a back office that solves it, would eventually solve the problem of the citizens. Yes, the open data is helping create a lot of entrepreneurs, and we would continue to encourage this to happen, because public data is, as long as they give credit, they can develop. Some of these 55 applications I said, some are actually commercial applications, and they need data. The problem is how real-time can that data be, for example. That is where the challenge is, but we are encouraging them to develop enterprises, new enterprises out of these new applications that are coming up. Again, as I said, the front and back end would respond to the question from Catherine asking for the monitoring systems. One of the systems that is being developed, indeed we came to Brazil here to see what they call Pupatempo, where the services are offered in one room, and then there is a monitoring thing to where the citizens say what level of service were offered and stuff. This would help actually in that. The other question on spending, because in Kenya a lot has happened, especially on tax collection, but we are still below 40% of the potential tax that needs to be collected. And a lot is happening. A lot of systems are being built around Kenya Revenue Authority to improve on tax collection. We have improved on the land rate collections simply by beginning to digitize records in the Ministry of Lands. We have improved by almost 500% in terms of revenue collection. Spending is what I said, how a nation utilizes its resources. And one of the areas I've said is the procure to pay. And one of the drivers is here, and I don't know why she left. She can actually do a bilateral and tell you how far we have gone with procure to pay. This is an area where we waste a lot of resources, and we are targeting. There are several other areas, as I said, the Ministry of Lands, several areas where spending has been a problem, and this can be captured because of automation and be able to cut the cost in those areas. Then legislation of generic platforms, our friend from India. I tend to be against the legislating everything. When you over-legislate, you actually kill innovation. I understand what you're talking about, but let it go. We are still in the process of discovery. From just a few years ago to where we are, I think we should move this way for some time so that all the innovations can come. And I saw, I've traveled to India, I've seen several innovations, and bringing in politics would actually stifle, because politicians are the ones who legislate, would stifle the innovation. Some of the most successful initiatives in Kenya, there was no law. I know this is a big debate. I don't want to get into that. The unique ID and trust. The biggest problem we have in Kenya are the Christians who think that once we have that unique ID, the end of the world comes. This comes from Revelation somewhere. Indeed, we tried with the tax, Kenya Revenue Authority, to implement this, and the religious leaders were up in arms. I think we must introduce it in another way, either through the social security or but still is one single identifier number. And in any case, if the end comes, it will be good. Then we don't have any problems going forward. Then we have the top-down approach. I completely disagree with you because imagine the government coming and saying, yes, we want to put systems in place so that our tax collection can go up. Please give us ideas. People won't do it. But on the other hand, if you see, especially the universities, the government subsidize the local NREN, the National Research and Education Network, to enable you to do all the innovations that you want to do in education. Then we have other networks which we are encouraging. So this is coming from policy, but it looks top-down. Some areas you require top-down because for government to be efficient in spending and the collection of taxes, you've got to do it top-down, because this is something that has a lot of resistance in terms of implementation. So if you take that small area and apply it to the rest, then we disagree. Some areas we have left it that the private sector, the academics can become more innovative. But I want to take this opportunity to thank you for the session. I've learned so much, and I thank everybody who has been listening to us. If you are not satisfied, I'm free for a bilateral after this. Thank you.
Well, it's now for me to thank all the panelists for their excellent presentations, but also very full and thoughtful responses. And I think in a spirit of lesson learning, as our colleague from Tanzania has observed, I think it's been rich in that. So let's show our appreciation before we break for lunch. Many thanks. There is a follow-up session on lesson learning on service delivery from a civil society perspective in this room from 2 o'clock this afternoon for those who want to pursue this theme.